Okay, so I've got my space ready now for a basic render setup. And you'll see a lot of people don't do this until right at the end. But I think it's a really good idea to set it up before you finish your projects. Also, before you even get close to finishing it, once you can set up the render, you should do that. Because that will tell you what work you should be doing. And you might get a surprise if you leave it till the end. And I see a lot of people who don't think in this way and they take way too long fixing things at the end because they haven't thought about it at the beginning. So think about why you're rendering. The reason you render, usually, is so that you can render a perspective or a camera view. We don't need to render views like this. This is a plan view. So it's, again, usually going to be a camera, which is the same thing as a perspective. Okay, so clicking on the down arrow there next to the house, we can choose camera, or if you go to the View tab, and then under 3D View, choose camera, it's the same thing. So, we've got the camera icon coming up, and I'm going to click to place my camera. Notice I'm on the ground floor plan, so my camera is being taken from that level, or my photo. So then, after placing your camera, you need to choose the target, and the tip I'll give you there is that you should not place your target too close to the camera. That'll cause problems. So take it a reasonable distance, still in the room, but again, not too close to the camera. So I'm going to take it down here towards where I want to look. Click to place it. You've got a camera view. So I might just show you where that's gone in the project browser. You can see I've got 3D View 3. So the name it gives cameras always will begin with 3D View and then whatever number it is. So I've made some cameras previously. I'll go back to the ground floor plan. You can see the camera that I've made. But if I want to see where those other cameras are, I can simply right-click on one of those and then choose Show Camera. So you can see this other camera's down here, 3D View 2. Again, I'll right-click and then again Show Camera, and I can see, well, I've been putting them all in the same place, basically. So I'll make this one a bit different. We can always drag it now and change the position of the camera. And then I'll drag the target over here and make it look in a different direction. So you can easily adjust your cameras after you've made them. And now to see that effect, I'll go to, or the result of that, I'll go to 3D View 2, and we're looking the other way. So 3D View 1 was looking from a similar place to the first one, and 3D View 3, of course, we saw. So you can make as many cameras as you like, but don't just make the cameras when you need to see something in perspective. Otherwise, you're going to end up with dozens of them. And I've seen even third-year people sometimes, third years in the Bachelor, I mean, who don't take the time to learn these tools properly and just make a camera view, a bit lazy, I think, just make a camera every time they want to see something in perspective and end up with dozens and dozens. I've seen someone with 300 camera views. And it took, I'm not joking, a week and a half for her to tidy that up and make it manageable. When if she just thought about it, you know, she would have saved all that time and my time too. So again, with the camera tool,
why was she doing so many?
because she didn't know that she should be renaming them and managing them. So here, again, if I just make one more, maybe from a different place.
Sorry, Jen, could you make one from Courtyard?
Oh yes, of course. Sure, I'll do that. Yep, sure. Okay, so back to ground floor, and I'll make one more. Camera again. Yeah, it's a good idea. From the courtyard, looking back towards the bathroom. So now it's getting a bit confusing though, because I've got all these views called 3D View 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's make it organised and do what I was saying. Instead of just leaving them like that, you can right-click on any of those views and rename and give them a meaningful name so you know what they're. So again, right-click, rename. So we'll call this View from Courtyard. How much better is that? 3D view 4. Yeah. So again, that's right. So here I'll right click, rename again, and we're looking to the bathtub close up, so I'll call it that. It's just for you. So again, it's just something that's meaningful. Close tub, close up.
And if you wanted to zoom out on that view, would you have to have
No, I'll show you that. So, okay, so now if I go back to ground floor. So remember, if you can't see the camera, right click on the view that you want to see, and then show camera. So now I can see where the camera is, and you can see it's very close to a wall. So I can't really go back much further. I can go back a little bit just by dragging it, and I'll see the result now if I go back and open it. Not much of an effect. That's what I'm going to do right now. That's right. Yeah, exactly. So if you know about lens sizes, that's good. Exactly. Widening the field of view is exactly the same as adjusting the lens. So if I select the border there, that's actually the field of view. So I can just drag it out, and that widens the field of view. It's the same as changing the lens. If you know about focal length, it's the same thing. Okay, so back to the plan view, and we'll see exactly how that's working. It's good if you know about this. So there, notice how now my cone of vision is wider. Right, so it is changing the lens. Same thing. It did. It is, exactly. So we'll look at how you can change the size on the sheet to print it different sizes later, but yeah, it is. You're right, yeah. So that's good. Yeah, that means you're thinking about cameras. Because until you start to really thinking about how cameras work, you won't know how perspectives work when you're drawing. Same idea. It's all the same theory. So here, again, I've got my bathtub close up, but we can see more because I've widened the field of view. Zooming, same thing. So, continuing on with those other perspective views, I can, again, adjust them in a similar way. And the tip I'll give you there is that you don't want to go too far unless you have to. Here, it's a narrow space, so we have to widen it a little bit. But if you go too far, I'll just show you, you can get some really undesirable results because things that are really close to the camera really shouldn't be seen generally. So here we go. Those doors look ginormous when we know they're not, but that's how perspective works when you widen the field of view like that. So just think about what you're trying to achieve. Yeah, and don't go too far if you can help it. But you've all seen it when you see real estate photos of small apartments and they make it look like a huge wide space because they use a little, not quite a fisheye lens, but a small like 15mm lens or something, which they shouldn't do, but that's what they do. Yeah, I do. I mean, I use 24mm. 20mm is probably the smallest I use for those little places, but yeah, I've seen even smaller. Okay, so yeah, so have a look at the adjustments. I will maybe show you, since you all seem, well, a lot of you seem to know about cameras, then I can show you to adjust them without, or using some other options. We've got the border there, which is the field of view, but then you've also got the navigation wheel over on the right, and that's got some really good options for cameras. So the look tool rotates the target. The orbit tool rotates the camera around the target. Notice how when you angle it, can you see how the walls are sloping? So that's a 3-point perspective. If you're wondering how you get 3-point, that's how. If you want it to stay 2-point or flat, just keep the target in line with the camera. So I'm saying 2-point, but really this is a 1-point. So 1-point really is just when you've got parallel walls and a vanishing point in the middle. Have you thought about that when you're drawing your 1-point perspectives? They only apply to rectangular spaces. I know they don't tell you that when they're teaching you how to draw them, but that's the truth. Doesn't work for diagonals.
How did you bring that back up? Is that the little spot on the slide?
Yeah, that's it. So if you want to get a true 1-point, you can adjust the direction of your camera, and that will give you a 1-point. You know about that. So there we are, pretty close. There we go. When I've got vertical vertical lines there for the walls that are straight. I know it's basically flat. So again, I'll give that a better name. View entrance, to tub, whatever, as long as I know what it is. Okay, so like I was saying, you generally would want to render perspective views. And for this assignment, that's all you need. You don't need to render any other views. So I've got my perspective or my camera view set up for rendering, and now I'm going to set up the render by clicking on the teapot. So the teapot, if you're wondering why you've got that little button down there, looks like a teapot, that means render. In Autodesk software, they always use the teapot for rendering. And it brings up this render dialog box. You can go to the View tab and click Render, it does the same thing. And so I've got the render controls there. So without changing anything, I'm just going to click Render. And it's actually going to work pretty well. And honestly, that will be enough to pass the assignment. So without doing any special setup, you're going to get a pretty good render.
Is it going to be overexposed?
Yeah, underexposed, but yeah, you're right. Yeah. Well, there's too much exposure correction, yeah. Control, yeah. Yeah, you should. But remember, everything in Revit has a material. So you're going to see a surface. You're not going to see anything that's see-through. It'll always have a material, it just might be pretty boring, grey. But it'll have something. Yeah. But yeah, it'd be much better if you put in your own tile materials. Reflective materials often look better, or materials with textures. So that's worked. But what's controlling the direction of the sun? It's set. It was set in our file when we first created it. So I haven't done anything to set the sun yet. So before I go and adjust the exposure, I'm going to adjust the sun, and then I'll look at the exposure. Yeah, we've got the clouds there, so that they actually affect the render. Yeah. So, okay, so I'm going to close the rendering, and then you've got this button down here with the sun on it. Don't worry about the sun path. Just go to sun settings. So, here's the setting it's using, which is actually pretty good if your windows are on the right. Okay, so this is set to be from the top right, no matter which way you're looking. If I was looking from the other side, it would still be on the right, the sun. So that's not very realistic. So, here though, we can just choose sunlight from top right, and I know that'll work. I'll click apply. You can't really see anything. So I'll click OK, and then I'm going to also just on that view control bar, click on the shadows button so that we can see the direction of the sun or sunlight, and then I'll go back to that sun settings and adjust it a bit further. Oh no, it's exactly like that. It is, yeah, much better. So, but we're not using that option yet. So this is the lighting option, which lets you type in an angle. So it's not tied to a location. So, oh yeah, so the angle, sorry. So you've got two angles. You've got the azimuth, so that's the direction on the compass. And then the altitude is the angle from the ground. We've got those two settings. And you can see again here it's relative to here. You won't need to use those things. Back when I started doing this work, you had to know those things because we did all the shadows by hand. And that's how you did all your shadow diagrams. So all of these lines you would have had to calculate yourself. You're lucky you don't have to do that anymore. Because, like you were saying, Linda, so if you go to still, what have we got? Location. Now, because the way the network is here, it picks up Canberra, because we've got this huge network and it finds the server in Canberra or something, I don't know. But you can easily click Browse, and on your own computers at home you'll see it'll it'll find, it's got this mapping service just like SketchUp, and it'll find where you are. But again, for some reason it's blocked and it finds this Canberra. Canberra's actually very close to Sydney anyway. It's 1 or 2 degrees off. So you won't notice the difference in the angle of the shadows if you leave it on Canberra. But if you're fussy like I am, you can manually choose from the default city list, and you'll find Sydney's in the list there. But again, when you own your own computers, it'll find that you're in Sydney. Yeah, so there's Sydney. Make sure you don't get the one in Canada. There we are. And I'm just showing you that in case you want to see the angle there. So it's the latitude. Longitude doesn't matter, but latitude is the distance from the equator, essentially. So I've set the location to Sydney. I'll click OK. And then notice you've got these preset settings. Summer solstice, winter solstice, spring and autumn equinox. So why do you think they've got those? Yeah, yeah. What do you think you need to give council when you submit an application? It's 3, but yeah, you're on the right track, yeah. So it's tied to the seasons, kind of. Shadow diagrams, that's right. So the most common is actually the winter solstice, because that's the worst case. The shadows are the longest, so that's why they give you that. Spring and autumn are actually identical. They're the equinox, so it's equal day and night. So even though they give you the different dates, it actually gives you identical shadows. And then the summer solstice is the best case. That's the longest day, and again, the shadows are the shortest. So I'll start with winter solstice, and you might be thinking, why am I using the worst case? Well, the shadows are the longest, but the light is also the longest. So the light coming into this space will go more deeply because it'll be at a greater angle. The sun's lower in the sky, so we're going to get a steeper angle for the shadows, but also the light into your space. And then I'll click apply. What's happened? You can see the sun going over here. That's right. So what else do we need to know? As well as the date, the time, and the location, what else does Revit need to know to get our shadow or the sun position relative to our... Exactly. That's the other thing you need to think about. Exactly. Have you done site analysis drawings for other subjects? No? Okay. So this is another thing. All council applications will require a site analysis drawing. So it's not really part of this subject, but it's something that you should maybe... No. No. But I always mention that because on any real project you work on, that's usually going to be the starting point. And on your site analysis, you should always see true north. So, where else do you see true north?
On the compass?
No, that's magnetic north. It's close, but they're different. But on Google Maps, or any of those things, it's all true north. But yeah, no, compass is good enough, but yeah, that's slightly different. So, okay, so you've got then a floor plan called true north, which is set basically to make true north. So again, if you haven't come across that term before, true north basically refers to the direction of the sun. So, you need to open up true north, go to the Manage tab, go to Position, and then rotate true north. Okay, so this one's quite easy. As long as you remember where it is, the next step's not too difficult. So just make sure you know that. So again, just one more time. Manage, Position, and then rotate true north. So it's really important. These days, especially environmental design, everything is, all related to this. So rotate true north. Then you just need to choose a point straight down. In other words, pointing to the south. And then a point straight up. So it goes 180 degrees. And notice what it's done. It's rotated the floor plan. But don't worry, if you go back to your other floor plans, they won't be affected. But now the final thing, if I go back to that perspective, there's my sun, perfect.
Have you got some gaps or something? No, there's a line.
Oh, that's the mullions.
No.
Oh, there you mean? Yeah, that's just showing the angle of the sun. No, when I render that'll get tidied up. So I won't even adjust that. I'm just going to go to render and then click render again. And render with my new sun direction. So then you can have fun adjusting the lighting from there. And yeah, it's getting there, but maybe having this angle isn't the most, presentable. So, I mean, look, again, this will be enough to pass, but to take it a bit further, you can always go back to sun settings and to get used to the way the sun works throughout the year, try adjusting some of the settings. So if we go with the time there and adjust that hour and click apply, you can see straight away the effect. So here I'm just by hour, adjusting. Maybe I'll go to the morning to get the sunlight to go the other way. And look, before long you'll know how the sun is going to move at different times in the year, at different dates. So that's winter. If you go for spring, then the shadows won't be as deep because the sun isn't at such a steep angle. If I go to summer.
What do people like? Like, what do consumers like to see?
Oh, more sun. Yeah.
Most?
Yeah, that's why winter can be good, but sometimes they're too long, those shadows. So if you go for different times to shorten them, that's good sometimes. So August, they won't be quite as deep as in June or July. So you can just adjust that until you're happy with the result. And then, so now if I go back and render again, of course it'll use this new shadow direction. But you can probably tell, still got a bit to go because it's too dark in these areas. So this is where the photographic terminology comes back. So using adjust exposure, you've got the slider at the top there, which you can use to make things darker or brighter. Click apply, and you see the result. That's too bright, I'll go back. Very sensitive, so just drag it a little bit, then click apply, see the result. That's probably good enough. So that will be enough, but I'll just show you the final thing. If we go back to maybe adding some more things now. So maybe in the courtyard I want to put some plants in. So you have massing in site that has site components. And you've got all these shrubs and trees in your file already. They should be loaded. So I'll just choose one. Place a few. Because when you've got a lot of white, it makes it very reflective and sometimes too bright. So I can see them there, but I need to update the render. See those in full colour. There we go. So then all we're expecting for this project is that you take it up to medium. Don't go to high. I know you'd be tempted to think that if you've got the time, that's going to be the best quality. But high will often be worse than medium. We'll go through that later, but it's one of these technical things to do with the engine that you're using, the rendering engine. So I just use medium, it's good enough. That's a different engine again. Yeah, no, if you want to try the cloud, that's good, but you don't need to worry too much about these settings. They're a bit different with the cloud. Yeah. You can see even on medium, the tiles there starting to get the detail. It's a good engine. This is a new rendering engine that Revit has now. But it gets a bit technical once you get beyond medium. And you'll find it'll cause some problems if you go to high. So leave it on medium. And that should be enough. Notice how the tiles, the decals there, don't show with any seams, so you can easily do something like that. And then the last thing I'll say is that you can save them if you're happy and you want to keep it. Just click Save to Project at the bottom. Give it a name. I'm happy with that name, so I'll click OK. And now I can close this. And then to find it again, you'll see then it's got a renderings category where I've got that view saved. That's all you need. No, that's just, yeah, that's a good point actually. So that's just a separate image now. Yep. So that's it. As long as you can get something done like that, and I think most of you are pretty close to having that already set up, then that's all you need for the assignment.